Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is a debut author and, of course, illustrator as well, with his debut book, Exit Without Living, building a business that thrives with you but does not depend on you. No other than Mr. Harrison Tash.
Thanks for having me on, Daniel.
Welcome, Mr. Harrison. I'm Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
I appreciate you asking. I have grown up in the world of small, privately held businesses and worked for larger companies, and then eventually started doing my own thing. And the thing that I learned was there's a way to run a business and there's a way not to run a business. And so that's what kind of was the impetus to write my book, is that I noticed there was a lot of people that were, chasing their tail, if you will, living in chaos, but were entrepreneurs. And so I just knew there was a different way, So that was a little bit about myself. And as I wrote this book, as you mentioned, I illustrated this book. I think that people learn best with the writing and the illustrations to help them kind of dissect it.
Definitely. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Harrison. Thank you. The Founder's Dilemma, the book's title suggests a paradox: to live without living. What's the core psychological shift a founder must take, even see this describable goal, or rather than a betrayal of their baby?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's it's paradoxical world here. Exit the business without leaving it. And it was written to people who didn't want to just sell off their business. They didn't want to just make a quick turnaround on a business. It was, like when you build something that you love, you were passionate about. It's rooted around the concept that it's exiting dependency. That's the big topic. Like, don't let the business be dependent upon you, and it won't feel like a ball and chain. You won't feel like the bottleneck. And what's remaining is you being able to be present and use your God-given skills and talents.
Beyond the self employed trap, many founders build a job for themselves, not a business. What's the first most telling sign that someone has created a personal franchise instead of an independent enterprise?
Yeah, I think if you go to like feelings, like what's the feelings you have attached to your business? That's probably a great starting point. Because I own my own business, and there's these thoughts that bop around in your head, and at the end of the day, those thoughts, the ones you think the most about, tend to tell you what kind of dependency you have, or what people depend on you for in your business. So sometimes in my head I might be thinking, like, why do we do this? Why do we do things differently in our business, like every time? Why do they come to me for everything? At the end of the day, you might be thinking, I don't understand. Why can't they just do it the way I do it? Why don't they listen when I tell them the first time? Maybe you're thinking, great, I got to wake up tomorrow and I got to be somewhere, early in the morning, and nobody else can do it except for me because I'm the only one that knows this, right?
Mhm.
These are all the thoughts that, business owners, entrepreneurs, they think a lot of times, because they haven't quite built that business where it doesn't quite all depend on them. And here's the secret about it. You can still build a business that you have a great part of it, but it doesn't depend on you. And that takes, first off, building a team around you that literally run the business, right? So building healthy leaders that run the business. And that's kind of the key of the first chapter of the book is how do you build these healthy leaders that run the business?
Interesting indeed. Mr. Harrison, I'm inviting you to be part of my other podcast, Entrepreneurship 101, and let's talk about entrepreneurship mindset.
Mm.
Looking forward for that. Let's talk about the indispensability, ego, I should say. We often secretly enjoy being the hub of everyone relies on. It feels like validation. How do you help founders confront the hidden cause of the ego stroke, of their freedom, their company's value, and their team's growth?
You know what? As we're talking about books, one of the books that I like to go back to for a good read is Harvey Firestone's book, Men and Rubber. This
Mm-hmm.
book was literally written in 1926, and it's the principles in that book are still so solid today. And I'm sure your guests would love more books that they can read. So that's one that I would recommend. And here's what Harvey Firestone says: it's only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. Now, just capture that for a moment. We like to think that when we're needed most, that is when we succeed because now we have all this knowledge, we have the expertise. But the problem with that is that if you don't teach somebody else your expertise, you're actually not at the highest point of leadership. It's when you turn around and you mentor and you give knowledge to somebody else and that knowledge is passed down that, as Harvey Firestone would say, you permanently succeed. Why? Because in that point of your leadership, you can actually multiply yourself, and that is how your business scales and grows. People don't view it like this. They view it because, like you said, the validation, the ego stroke. They think that now that everyone thinks that I'm the expert, it feels good. It actually feels better, hopefully, to turn
Yes.
around and to pass that knowledge down. And I think the fear that comes with it is, well, what if they're better than me? Well, then absolutely great. Because here's the thing, where you had to crawl, they should be able to sprint. And if they can do that, your business will grow exponentially. And by the way, here's the little secret. People get pretty annoyed when they work with someone who hoards all the knowledge, who hoards all the experience and the ability. And when they do that, people get pretty tired because it doesn't feel like they're being invested in.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually attract more people when you do this well.
Yes, definitely. Definitely don't be selfish, people. Share your knowledge. The new definition of legacy. If the ultimate legacy is not just your personal brand, stamp on everything, but thriving, self sustaining entity, how does that change the founder's daily priorities from day one?
Yeah, when you first, start out in a business or you take a position, it's all about discovery. It's all about wearing multiple hats to see which one you're really good at and where you should take on. I think sometimes we get just trapped in this idea that if we're busy, if we're doing something, it's productive. And, this isn't a new topic, right? Like lots of people talk about this topic, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. When we feel like we're doing something, we think we're being productive. And the furthest truth that you have to seek for is what if my ability to go and use my God-given skills and talents and actually shine in those means that I have to train people, I have to put people in place to run what they're good at. And at the end of the day, building that business, it's all about putting the right people in the right seats and allowing yourself to do what you need to do. And so as a business grows, you start to put your focus in the areas that actually suit you best. And what doesn't suit you best, not, and listen when I say this, it's not what you don't want to do because you need to get uncomfortable. It's what you shine in, it's what you gravitate towards. It's not always what you don't want to do, you hand off. right? And so the idea is then put people in place of the things that you just can't do. And I'll put it into an example. Like for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, yes, taking care of the finances. Yes, making sure that the team understands where we're going as a company, the strategy is clear, the vision is clear. That's all my job. And I also, by the way, show up and help lead and facilitate these type of events that we do with companies. So these are all part of my job. Well, I don't like diving into the details as much because I love doing the content. I love doing the framework. I use my experience to help teach. I can't be extremely detailed about processes and systems. So what was one of my first hires when started, this business formed? That one of the first hires I made was somebody who could create systems and processes and begin to put our framework into a place to where it could be repeatable, because if it's repeatable, it's scalable. And so, for me, I had to figure out how to do that well. I put someone in place that knew that well so that I could concentrate on what I was good at. And then so forth. It's like, well, if I'm busy doing content and leading and helping, now I need someone to help us do sales. Okay, like, am I good at sales? I'm okay at sales. Like, I love having genuine, transparent conversations. Where are you? Where do you want to go? If we can't help you, then I can point you in the right direction. But now, as we have someone who's starting to do that, and we're starting to put people in place in the right seats, now it's allowing me to actually grow the business in the area that it needs to grow. And so, anyways, to your point, we might start off wearing a bunch of hats. We might be solely dependent upon, trying to figure things out. But as you grow, you've got to figure out, where do you put your emphasis and where do you put your priorities? And then how do you grow people that do that for you?
Very well said, Miss Harrison. Very well said, Mister. So let's talk about the tangible outcomes, value, and freedom and options. The value equation. How does systematically removing your personal dependency directly and measurably increase the financial valuation and marketability of the business? Can you share an example of a specific change that boosted value, Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, because it's like it forces an example here, and I love that. So in general, what I see is that when we do grow the business by letting go and actually putting people in the right seats, as I said, that's like the first part of it. Well, then you have things like I talked about, the repeatable system, the processes. How do you create your own systems, and then you track your outcomes, and all these things are in the framework in the book. But what I see mostly happen is that a team starts to align on where they're going. A team starts to understand where they need to put their efforts, what their highest priority is. And by the way, if you have a winning strategy, what happens is that people start to put their emphasis in the right direction because you're aligned. So really what happens first is you start to see things start to align across the board of the organization. Whether you got 10 people or you got 10,000, it does not matter. You have to be aligned about where you're going, and that starts with vision, right? And then your
Yes.
strategy comes from your vision, and of course, from your strategy comes the objectives that you're really going after. And so, how does this really help the company? At the bottom line, when you do your P&Ls and your balance sheets and your cash flow statements, what you're going to see is that when you put your emphasis and you invest in the right areas, it starts to trickle down to that bottom line, because things are way more productive than once were. And here's an example. If you think about your personal life, when you think about, if you just buy what you like in the moment, what happens? You start to one, your bank account starts to lower, but
Mhm.
but you start to think, well, wait a minute, like, I bought this, I bought this, I bought this, I bought a sweater, I bought this kind of sweater, I bought this, I bought this, and it's like you didn't plan well. So what happened? You wasted money. You weren't productive with the way that you invested your time and your money. And at the end of the day, you look at it and you're like, I should have really, really prioritized how I was going to invest my time and how I was going to spend my money. And a business is no different. If you don't prioritize and learn where to put your time and money, what you're going to do is you start to look for the next shiny thing that you have around you. Like, okay, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. And I've seen companies literally, here's an example from one of the companies we worked with. They were spending $100,000 in marketing a year.
Okay.
We stepped in and we said, let's figure out where you guys are wanting to go in the next 3 to 5 years. And by the way, we call this the horizon vision. Where are you going in the next 3 to 5 years? And as we peeled that away and figured out, and it's very practical, it's like, what do we want the revenue to look like? Numbers are easy, but let's start talking about characteristics, desires, and big goals. And as you list those things out, it becomes pretty clear. We want to have a fully developed leadership team. We want a branch leader over here. We want to be at 15 million. You start listing those out, and it's like, and we want our customers to know that we're the highest quality. They can always depend on us and they always want to come back. Okay, well, how do you get to that point? After doing that and then going through the winning strategy session, which we outline in the book as well, after we do that, what we find is in this actual situation, $100,000 in marketing we looked at the ROI on that, and according to where they wanted to go, and we're like, why are you putting, this is no joke, $20,000 into residential when it's not even a part of your future plans? And they're like, well, what should we do with that money? Well, what if we poured it into the commercial side of your business? Because that's the one you said you want to grow. That's the one that has the biggest net percentage on top of it. Why don't we put that money either there, or let's hold it for a second and see where we can reinvest it? Here's what we did with that money. Out of the 100,000, we cut it in half, and we were able to hire an outside salesperson with the money that we just reallocated it. And guess what? Marketing still had the same ROI because they started focusing extremely heavy on, according to their vision and their strategy, where they wanted to put the money. And they wanted to put the money into commercial. So there's an example when you have that extreme focus and alignment around your team of where you're going, it literally affects the bottom line. And now they have an outside sales guy who can literally help them grow the business.
Well, very well said, Mr. Harrison. Clever indeed. Let's talk about the strategical sabbatical. A powerful test is a plan, right?
Yeah.
Unplug absence. What does a successful practice exit look like? What do you measure during it? Know if the business is really thriving independently?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? I mean, we like to start off small. When we think about, what does it look like for me to leave and figure out if the business is truly dependent on me? I mean, we start with your time allocation, do 168 hours in a week, figure out where all your time's going, try to help people time manage first while they're building and developing the team. After a while, you get to the point where the end goal, at least for the first test, is 7 days with your phone completely off. And here's what we find. That 7-day with your phone completely off, although that's the first test, because the second test is literally 2 weeks, and then you go further. But the first test with your phone completely off, although it's a test for you for restraint, like, can I turn this off and feel okay? Right? There's that side of it. But on the other side, what you're doing is you're actually developing leaders. So even in your absence, so that you know that it's not dependent on you, your leaders have to make decisions that come up. And so it forges them not to have a safety net with the owner. Now, there's a lot of work to get to this point, but what we've found is in a course of a year, typically if you have a decent foundation, we can get someone there where it's a completely phone off. Now, here's the thing. People hear that and they're like, well, I can go 7 days with turning my phone off. No problem. And I say, well, Well, then that means you're in phase 2. That's just phase 1. Phase 2 is 2 weeks with your phone completely off. But here's the deal. You have to put somebody in charge for 2 weeks. You have to be able to say, you are in charge of this business. So everyone is reporting to you when I'm gone. That is a harder step for people, especially when you're talking about smaller businesses, right? When you're talking about people that are in the 10 million range and they have around 100 people or what have you, right? That's a little harder for them because it forces them to say, this is literally someone who could run the business for me if I'm gone. That becomes harder for someone to do. And of course, there's more phases. I don't want to like share all of them because there is a cycle that you have to go through in order to see if this dependence is real or if it's fake. And at the end of the day, if you get to phase 2, I think you're doing pretty decent, but there's still more work to do.
Yes, definitely. And Mr. Harrison, when it goes wrong, can you share a story of time you tried to delegate or systematize something critical and it backfired? What did you learn about this process of letting go and not just the goal?
Okay, well, you know, this is a question that actually comes up quite often. It's like, well, what's the things that could go wrong? And that's when before you do phase 2, there is a shut your phone off for 2 weeks and go on vacation. Like, okay, that is phase 2. Before you go on phase 2, there is actually a thing of what I call worst case scenario planning. And where you look through your business and say, what's the worst I think could happen? Am I going to lose our anchor client while I'm gone? What if something goes terribly wrong? Some of the industries that we work in are construction, and it's like, hey, it's a risky kind of job, right? So
Yes.
someone could get hurt, and you don't want to ignore someone getting hurt. So here's the practicality of it. Sometimes things will go wrong. We often think it's going to go wrong when we leave. Sometimes that's true, but rarely do I see that. But it's not like it can't happen. So here's a scenario, though, that I'll give you because I think this is a balance. So you asked about a specific example.
Yes, please.
So as we were working with this company, we've worked with this company for like 4 years. And over the course of time, there was a point where the CEO was like, I want to do phase 1, 7 days, no phone whatsoever, right?
Okay.
So the timing matters of this too. There's got to be a way that you do this with integrity to your business and understanding that there are things that could happen. During this time, he didn't review financials with his CFO before he left. And so the CFO had been forced to make decisions on his own. And one of those decisions was a budgeting issue that he approved that went through and later on cost them some money.
Okay.
Now, at the end of the day, when you think of that, it's like, how could we have prevented this? Listen, you have to dump your mind and say, what's the worst case scenario? Go through that, of course. But there's also this other part where you have to have clear expectations of where someone can't make decisions for you, right? You can't open a new branch while I'm gone. You can't make this kind of financial decision. You can't invest more than 5,000. Like, you've got to have parameters with your team. And by the way, it's not clear unless it's on paper. And people know where to go to see those expectations. Now, we like to put this on roll cards for the top 7. Or actually, I shouldn't say top 7. For the top line leaders. We like to put this on their roll cards that if they truly are running portions of the business, you have to have an outcome section of like, hey, daily, weekly, monthly, what are the expectations? But as you grow in your business and you get to the point where dependency is not there, you do have a section where it is, these are the decisions you can make and can't make. And of course, they can't be all comprehensive. It's just got to be some very practical ones, And we, listed some of those examples before. Like, one of the ones that I've seen listed before, and I think this was great. It was, they buy fleet vehicles all the time, and he's like, hey, don't make a decision to buy fleet vehicles over a certain price and don't renegotiate contracts with the fleet vehicle program. Like, those are two things I'd like to be involved in. And I think that's great, as long as it's clear that those decisions won't backfire on you while you are trying to go through this, exiting your dependency, if you will.
Very well said. Very well said, Mr. Harrison. So, as an author as well as an entrepreneur, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, short term, we're continuing to grow our business. I mean, we've worked with hundreds of leaders across the country, and right now we're in the midst of taking the book and helping people extract the best ideas out of it in a learning platform. And so we've created an online program that you can go through with the book. And so part of our short-term goals is to get more people to dive deeper with the book. Any book you read that doesn't have action, I would just go ahead and put it down. This book is filled with call to action for you as a business owner. Not to mention, it's very practical in the way that I wrote it. I want you to be able to walk away with a list of things that you can do tomorrow after you read each chapter. And so we're trying to, short-term goal is to help bring that to fruition, helping people see how they can take action on the things that are in the book. Long-term, I mean, we are looking at businesses that we want to buy, and we want to help take them and make them great, and of course help build equity in those companies. So long term, we're looking at those as we have a holdings company attached to our consulting side, and we want to buy companies and help build their equity directly with the framework, because we already know it works. It's already been tested. And of course, we don't want to do that at the expense of our clients and our customers. So we're doing that by branching ourselves off and allowing leaders in our business to hopefully run those businesses one day. And so anyways, that's some of the short and long term.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Harrison, and looking forward for much success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people that don't want to be like you?
Well, you know
Want
what?
to be
I
like you?
don't, I don't know. I don't think of it that way normally. I don't think of people looking up to me, because I have so many people that I look up to. So this might be easier for me to answer why I would look up to people that I've, mimicked or have taken pieces from. I once heard it said that we're only the sum of everyone we've ever met, right?
Mm-hmm.
And different pieces of you are pieces of people that you met, and the most part of you that you've taken from them and really integrated into your life, has to do with values and personality and goals and all that stuff. And the
Yes.
things that I really look for when I look for a mentor, or I look for people that I really admire, is that they're humble. You got to be humble in order to be curious, in my book, right? If you can
Yes.
be humble and say, I don't know everything, I'm even though if I built this magnificent business, I still don't know everything. Even though I wrote a book, I don't know everything. And so that creates a lot of curiosity for me. And I've seen where the most curious people are very they're interesting to watch, because they ask the best questions. And I've tried to mimic that through my years of just trying to be better at being curious and trying to mimic that. Ox Perlman, he's the great, he's not a magician, but he's the mentalist, right? He
Mm-hmm.
says the most interesting person in the room is the most interested person in the room. And I tend to agree with that. So if there's anything that you want to do in life, you better get extremely curious if you want those goals to come to fruition, because that's how you're going to learn and grow. The,
Yes.
the other piece I will add to this, not just humble, like being able to be extremely humble and having curiosity. The third thing I would say is that it does take good discipline.
Mm.
If you can't consistently get better over time, most times it's not a stalemate. You don't just sit in the middle. You're either getting better or you're slowly declining. And that's true for businesses and personally. So those are three things, humility, curiosity, and discipline, obviously in the right direction. And if you can do those things, I believe you can change your life when it comes to, what you're achieving in this lifetime. And obviously the humility helps you grow closer to people, because people really like to be around others who are humble and curious. So
Thank you for that empowering advice, Mr. Harrison. Truly, truly empowering. Always, the arrogant people, they always say, I know, I know.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
But for
I
the
almost want to flip this podcast, Daniel, and ask you, like, what are some of your short-term, long-term goals? What are the things that you think? I don't want to steal all the mic here, man. I'm always interested in learning from you too.
Yes, of course. I created lots of podcasts. My vision and mission is only one: to empower people all over the world.
Yes.
We have what, 8 billion. One person will be, what do you call this? One person that is empowered to one of my podcasts. That is priceless. Just like
Yes,
what
I
we are
love
talking
that.
about. What we are talking about business. So one of these person empowered to create business from this episode. Something good, right?
Yes, I agree.
Definitely. So, before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Harrison, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 6th season, abstract poetry in 3rd season, and of course, my book 101 review in 6th season as well, comedy 101 in 3rd season, and my food 101 in 6th season. Geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 our 5th season, science 101, sex 101 4th season, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and of course my Bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Harrison, for you writing this book, what is the deeper why? What is the born form or from a painful experience of dependency or unobserved pattern in clients or a personal vision for more creative form of entrepreneurship?
I appreciate you asking that, and I will validate. I love. I've already subscribed to this podcast, so audience, subscribe to this podcast and all the other ones, because Daniel is doing something really good. And so, anyways, I would second that. Please subscribe to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, the deeper why for writing this it goes way back to when I graduated college, and I was in the midst of getting my master's in organizational and leadership and development. And when I graduated, I worked for they were just, they were a small business, and they were led by an extremely just kind of erratic person. And I saw that business really, there was, like around, say 50 people that worked for that business. They had no other choices. They felt like they were just there. People had been there for 10 years, and this was a really poor led small company. And honestly, it was just sad to me to see that, like, this community thought, like, the people that worked there in that community just thought, like, this was it. This is what they had to do. And then I worked later on in life. I worked for a very large general contractor who was the complete opposite. The CEO, literally empowered people around him. And as I, was able to work with some of those leaders, I then, all the leaders actually, but as I worked with those leaders, it then multiplied their business even more. And so it was just like this empowering environment where people were empowered to lead. They were able to then grow by delegating and get. So I saw just both ends of the stick, and I thought, if I could help people literally create a business that they feel like it's just a God-given blessing to them, and it doesn't feel like chaos, and it doesn't feel like a weight on their shoulders every single day, That's the deeper why. I also want to give one more deeper why.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that small, medium-sized businesses are literally, they are what turn this economy round and round again. And so as I kept seeing a lot of businesses sell out to humongous corporations, sometimes even located in other countries, I thought, man, why couldn't we have built this business up to where we could have given it to the next person, or I mean, sold it to the next person, but to someone who wanted to keep it local and building the economy of their community. And
True.
I like that idea that it can still stay privately held, but still, be in the millions and millions. Like you can grow it to a certain point. So there is some deeper why to this book. And I hope that it encourages people to build those kind of businesses where they don't just take the first check that comes their way to sell it to some corporate collaborate,
Mm-hmm. Yes, people, build your legacy to the world and stop procrastinating. Come on. Mr. Harrison, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, your business, or whatever project that you're doing right now?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, find it anywhere there. And thank you for having me on, Daniel.
No worries at all, Mr. Harrison. You are most welcome to come back if you want to promote something. I'm inviting you to my Entrepreneurship 101. As I said, let's talk about business mindset or entrepreneurship mindset. And of course, abstract essay first, because let's talk about the writing process of exit without living. And people, let's support Mr. Harrison Tash, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering business will thrive. And I have one more question before I will let you go, Mr. Harrison. The trust but verify balance. In this model, how do you maintain oversight and ensure alignment without reverting the micromanagement? What is the key rhythm? Is it metrics that provide peace of mind?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think you could go like so many ways with that. But if you're rooted in the right values, you're rooted in an alignment of purpose of why the business exists beyond the profit, and you understand where it's going, as long as you come back to that. I like to call it the Yak Back CEO. There was like a Yak Back toy back in the day where you would record and then you could hit play and hit play and hit play. They would just keep saying it, right? If you're not tired of saying some of the same things over and over and over in your business about the vision, about the values, about the purpose, about the disciplines that you want to build around, you're probably not saying it enough. And I think those kind of things, if you learn that discipline over time, it just becomes a part of what you do. And I've seen this in a lot of our coaching. I've seen companies just do it year after year after year, even though they think that people are tired of hearing it. And I say, don't worry about it. Just keep saying it and then keep doing it. And that is how you don't revert back, is that you align yourself with accountability with a team that doesn't let you stop saying it, and you don't. And you just keep going and going and going, not to your detriment though. You always got to come back with curiosity and say, are we doing it right? And then go, and then go, and then go.
Definitely go, people, go do it again. Stop procrastinating. Share your talents to the world. Create business. Create your legacy to the world, just like Mr. Harrison doing right now. And share to the world as well. Mr. Harrison, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bodycon people, see you soon.